What if your next big invention idea came from a problem that you experience every single day of your life? That's exactly what happened to Will Ahmed. He was just a college athlete, no engineering degree, no medical background, but he was frustrated that his training wasn't working. That frustration led to a simple idea, and that idea turned into Whoop, a small wrist strap that grew to a $3.6 billion company. And today it's worn by LeBron James, Olympic athletes and champions, and even the US Army. And the best part, it all started because Will tried to solve his own problem. My name is Salvador Brigman, and I love to demystify success, helping creators, inventors, entrepreneurs, people just like you absolutely crush it with their product launches. So in today's YouTube video, let's unpack how Whoop went from dorm room idea to billion-dollar invention, along with the lessons that they've learned along the way, so that way you can apply it to your own product launch or your own invention. Back in 2012, Will Ahmed was playing varsity squash at Harvard University. He trained hard every single day, but he was always tired, and he couldn't figure out why. He realized no device could tell him when to rest. So he did what real inventors do. He started researching. He dug into hundreds of scientific papers on human performance and recovery. And that's when he discovered heart rate variability, or HRV. It's a small signal from your heartbeat that shows how ready your body is to perform. Will turned his research into his senior thesis, and that paper became the foundation for Whoop.
I was always playing sports, I was always exercising, and that eventually led my way to Harvard. And so I was a college athlete. I got recruited to play squash at Harvard. And over the course of my time there, got very fascinated by how I could better understand my body, how I could understand what it meant to train optimally, how I could prevent overtraining, which was a problem that I had, how I could really understand the other 20 hours of the day when you weren't exercising. And so that took me down this rabbit hole of physiology research, which we can get into. But I read hundreds of medical papers while I was in school, and then ultimately wrote a paper myself around how to continuously measure the human body. And then over the course of my time at Harvard, built up the confidence to start a company, which was a fairly crazy thing looking back on it.
Lesson number 1. Your best invention ideas often come from solving your own problem deeply enough to understand its science. After graduation, Will teamed up with engineers and physiologists. Together, they built a wristband that tracked sleep, strain, and recovery. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't even easy to use, but it did something no other device could do. It measured what was invisible. Whoop wasn't about how many steps you took, it was about how your body was performing on the inside.
One of the biggest things that shows up in the research is the importance of consistency, which is going to bed and waking up at the same time. And you and I were just talking about how hard that is in general. I mean, you the nightclub promoter. Probably.
You, the new dad.
Yeah. So that's probably my worst metric on Whoop, in part because travel just nukes it. So for people wondering how it's calculated, like for the last, you look at like for the last 4 nights, how similarly was your bedtime and wake time. And if you travel over time zones, that of course factors into your, to your consistency. And, but essentially there's all this research just showing that if you can build a sort of continuity around bed and wake times, your overall circadian rhythm, your overall performance of your body, longevity. I mean, it's one of the key indicators we discovered when we built this health span score for overall health span and actually all-cause mortality.
Lesson number 2, prototype around data, not opinions. Numbers will prove your value faster than any feature. Will pitched investors again and again, and most said no. They told him the market's already taken by Fitbit and Apple. He maxed out his credit cards. He survived on short-term bridge loans. For over a year and a half, he ran Whoop with less than 3 months of cash at a time. Then the stress hit hard. One night, Will thought he was having a heart attack. He rushed himself to the hospital, but the doctors told him it was a panic attack. That experience forced him to look at what was really driving him when it came to his story.
Would you be able to share how much did that first prototype cost? Like how much did you put in to bring that to life?
Probably $50,000 or $100,000. I mean, we had raised about $300,000, and most of the capital was going towards figuring out how we could build that prototype. And it's worth saying, like, we raised another $400,000 after that, and then we raised $3 million. And then we raised $6 million, and each of these is like about a year later. But it really took until the $6 million for us to be able to get to a stage where we could manufacture it. So at each one of those additional financings, the $300K, the $400K, the $3 million, the $6 million, each one of those kind of had its own new prototype, so to speak. And the product was getting a little bit more accurate. It was getting a little less clunky looking. And a lot of it was sort of de-risking, okay, we can now measure these things with this form factor, and when we make it look much more attractive, people are going to buy it because this many people buy this ugly other thing today.
Lesson number 3. The hardest part of inventing isn't the technology, it's surviving your own ambition. After that night, Will started practicing transcendental meditation. He's done it every morning since 2014. He says it's changed everything. It gave him perspective. It stopped tying his self-worth to his company's success. He said, quote, "Meditation didn't make me less ambitious, it made me clearer." And that clarity helped him make the next big decision.
Well, people who meditate in general have a much better heart rate variability. So we do see that people who practice some form of mindfulness, some form of meditation, have on average higher heart rate variabilities than other people. We also see that if you're someone who doesn't meditate and then you introduce meditation, that too will lead to a higher heart rate variability. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In many ways, heart rate variability is a measurement of your breathing in the moment. So it's not that surprising. But I think it's quite powerful that the way you might just do a breathing exercise for 10 minutes in the morning today is going to then later affect how you sleep, some 12 hours or 18 hours later. I think that's quite fascinating.
That brings me to lesson number 4. When you burn out, your invention stops evolving. Protect your mind like it's part of your product. Now, everyone told Will to add a screen, notifications, steps, calories, the works, and he said no. He kept Whoop completely screen-free. It wasn't a smartwatch, it was a performance monitor. That one decision made Whoop stand out.
Of course, one of the biggest differences between the two devices is the screen. There is no screen on the Whoop at all. Because of that, I actually see them as quite separate devices. I don't necessarily think they're really competing against each other. I see the Apple Watch as an extension of my iPhone with some health tracking features chucked in, and I see the Whoop as a dedicated health tracker. It puts measuring health data above everything else.
Lesson number 5. Innovation isn't just about what you build, it's also about what you refuse to build. In 2020, a professional golfer named Nick Watney noticed something strange. His Whoop showed a sudden spike in his breathing rate. He got retested for COVID and came back positive, becoming the first PGA player to test positive. That story went viral. Soon, every PGA and LPGA player got a Whoop. That was the turning point.
Okay, our guest today is Nick Watney. Nick Watney is a professional golfer on the PGA Tour and has been in the news a lot recently because he was the first professional golfer to test positive for COVID-19. And this is close to home because Nick Watney is a Whoop member. He's been a Whoop member for close to a year now and monitors his Whoop statistics daily. And it turns out that Nick Watney was able to identify that he may have COVID-19 from looking at his Whoop data. We go into great detail talking about that experience he had. Frankly, it's a little surreal talking to him about it for us because it's so wild. Here's a professional golfer who literally is at the tournament. He tests negative on a Tuesday, and then on Thursday, he wakes up with a 1% recovery. His body's run down. He feels no symptoms, plays his round. The next day, he sees on his Whoop data a huge jump from 14 to 18 on his respiratory rate. And that causes him to say, hey, I should get tested for COVID-19. He goes in, he gets tested, tests positive. He's able to quarantine, and he ends up protecting the tour because otherwise he would have been playing all weekend.
That brings me to lesson number 6, which is that your breakthrough can happen when the world suddenly needs something that you've already built. Stay ready. In 2021, Whoop raised $200 million at a $3.6 billion valuation. Then Will made a bold move. He stopped selling the hardware. Instead, Whoop became a subscription membership. You paid monthly, you got the strap for free, and you got access to data and coaching. That changed everything. By 2025, Whoop was bringing in over $400 million a year with 85% retention.
On that point of investors, you've raised $400 million in capital, roughly.
Yeah.
$400 million in capital. How important is it when it comes to picking your investors to pick the right ones? Because I've seen this kind of make and break companies.
I think it's really important that you're aligned with the investors on what the purpose of the company is, and as a consequence, also what the purpose of the capital is. We certainly had investors along the way who wanted to put money into the business, but wanted it to go in a different direction than what I thought was the right direction. And so I'm grateful that I never took that capital. I think it gets more complicated when you've got a believer and that believer invests in you and your business, and then whatever you're building takes longer or the revenue hasn't quite come in yet, and all of a sudden the believer starts to become a non-believer. That's where you start to learn who your investors really are. I think that's when you start to learn how functional a board of directors is. Like when things are bad, how's everyone behaving? And so it's super important in the selection process, certainly with investors. And I think reference checks are really important. And I think alignment on what you're trying to do with the capital, what your identity is as a company. But I think equally important is learning how to manage your board and your group of investors when stuff isn't going well.
Lesson number 7, you don't have to sell gadgets, you can sell results. Today, Whoop isn't just for athletes. It's used by Formula One teams, the US Army, and corporate wellness programs. Their latest version, Whoop 5.0, comes with an AI recovery coach that learns from your data and gives personalized recommendations. The goal, to unlock human performance for everyone.
Well, we recently launched the Whoop 5.0 and the MG. So that's all of our new hardware with Whoop. It's got a much longer battery life and new features like around health span. So it'll tell you how old you are and your Whoop age and what you can do to get younger. There's a whole feature that's around heart screening. So if you're someone who's worried about having AFib or, you're talking to a cardiologist or you might need to talk to a cardiologist, there's a whole feature for that that's now medically cleared. We came out with blood pressure monitoring, which is pretty badass. So we're the first wearable to do that on a large scale. There's a lot of new technology that we just launched, which I'm pretty stoked about. In some ways, it's been, 13 years in the making. And in terms of me, I think it's, trying to get a little better every day, try to keep building the business. At some point, this is probably a company we'll take public, which is in itself another chapter, another challenge, another growth opportunity.
Lesson number 8. Once you master one problem, scale to the next layer of value. Don't jump, build upward. Will Ahmed didn't set out to build a fitness tracker. He set out to understand his own body. And he proved that oftentimes the greatest inventions start with a question that only you care enough to answer. One of his great quotes is, if you measure it, you can improve it. Now, if you get excited hearing about stories just like this and you want to create your first prototype or product and get it out there to build a brand from scratch, to begin to maybe even sell that product online, I do have a free course out there for you walking you through the steps that go into creating that product from scratch, whether it's something that's a physical product, something like a gadget or a gizmo. It could be a design product, could be something more creative in nature like a fashion line. Go and check out that free course at crowdcrux.com/makeaproduct. I'll include that link down below at the link link crowdcrux.com/make-a-product, and you'll begin to make progress quickly in terms of turning your idea into a real physical product. And for those of you out there that are like, you know what, Sal, it sounds cool, but I'd like to skip to the finish line. I'd really like to begin to get some sales for that product. I'd like to validate my idea. I'd like to maybe even have funding flowing in the door from people who are saying, yes, this product should exist in the world. If that sounds interesting to you, you can use a crowdfunding platform called Kickstarter to do that launch. And I do have a free course out there going through in depth how you can launch a Kickstarter campaign, how you can rack up pre-orders, how you can actually have people funding your idea, so then you can take that funding and you can really mass produce that product. If that sounds like something interesting to you, go down below and join my free course at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter, and you'll start getting some lessons from me, not only warm you up to how to do one of these launches, but some of the tricks that they don't tell you behind the scenes, some of the tools that you can use to make that experience beautiful, and some of the really cool resources at your disposal to really blow past your goal when it comes to that Kickstarter campaign at that link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. All right, man, so if you like invention stories with actionable lessons, definitely take a second to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also leave a comment down below and let me know, which story would you like to see next? Is it Dyson? Is it Velcro? Is it Post-its? Is it another product that you are enamored with? Leave a comment down below and let me know. But my name is Salvador Brigman. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up on this one as well, and I'll see you next time.